Hello, all you beautiful people. This is Intentional Healing, and I am Nicole Bridger. So, something that's been coming up, it's always kind of come up, but lately a few people have been asking it, and it's about isn't this work actually harder than just staying kind of numb, kind of in automatic mode? And is it actually better to start doing the deep dive? Or is it a lot easier to just keep going and not awaken? And perhaps if you're watching this, there are times where you question the same thing. Do I really want this? Is it worth the work? I had a client just the other day, newer to the work, and a few weeks into our month-long group class said, I feel worse than normal. What is this about? She's like, I have this pain in my heart. Like, is that stress? What is that? And we all had a good laugh. But of course, I mean, that's a real experience that she's having. So I want to talk about it because I do hear it a lot. People worried about diving into this work. And another client before beginning this work asked me, well, isn't it just better to keep all that stuff locked in that box and just not look at it? So let's talk about it. But before we begin, taking a deep breath and allowing yourself to just be here. Calling your attention from wherever it is scattered out there. Things that need your focus in your life, decisions that need to be made. Just taking a deep breath and calling that energy back into yourself. All those things will still be there when we're done. And when you feel ready, opening your eyes. Or perhaps you're listening to this while you're driving to work, so let's hope you kept your eyes open. And you can still do that breath work even when you're driving. Actually, it's the perfect time to do it. So, is it? Ask yourself right now, is it? Is it easier just to keep it all locked in that box? Pushed down deep, not to be looked at again? I mean, it's certainly possible, and you see a lot of people do it. Actually, I would say most people that are just living in autopilot, not looking in, just keep going in the way that we have been taught. And that is ultimately your divine choice. There's different religions that sort of talk about this idea of divine choice. And to me, that's what it's about. Here you are, the soul inside this human existence, walking this planet. And your divine choice is, will I live disconnected or fully in alignment to my spirit self? And the journey in to listening to your spirit self, to working together with it. Sure, it's not an easy one. But I would be careful around this idea of making it hard. A client just the other day kept saying in another group, bless me, sorry, another group class that I have. And she so beautifully was saying, to be awakened is hard. It's the harder journey. This is going to be hard work. And I beckoned her. I said, just notice for a second where you want to make this hard. Because that's simply just one of her modes of existence. Wanting to make things harder than they need to be. I think that this journey can be as hard as you make it. And in fact, that's one of your resistance modes. As soon as you can see that, then the easier it is for you to go into flow. So remembering that there's only two ways that you can show up in the world. Either in flow with your divine self, with the divine universe, in flow, or in resistance. And to be in resistance can look a lot of different ways. You can click into a resistance mode that just pushes it all away and work. You can click into resistance mode where you disconnect from your feelings and you just numb out. Whether it's just by actually not letting yourself feel, or numbing out with food, drugs, sex, something that just, shopping makes you not feel. You can go into resistance by just completely avoiding, checking out, sort of going frozen. You can go into resistance mode by overgiving, depleting yourself. There's a lot of different modes that you exist in out of survival. So why we create these modes, and I call them default modes. When you're young, learning to survive in the world, by the time you're 7, most of your beliefs and therefore default modes have already been formed. So when you're young and you're experiencing a feeling that you don't want to feel, that doesn't feel good, and you don't know what to do with, we create these modes. The overworking one can come from a mode of how I earn praise and love is through accomplishment. The thing is that if we do stay in autopilot, let's say, not doing the deep dive, then we just exist in these modes. Not ever questioning why we always give and never receive, or never questioning why we feel like we can just never trust anybody, or in fact, not just that we think that we can't trust anyone, but that the universe actually keeps showing us that we can't trust. Because when you're coming from these modes, you're holding on to a belief. Let's say I can't trust. And then like draws in like. That's a universal law. So as you're holding this belief, I cannot trust, the universe brings more of that to affirm it and affirm it and affirm it. And it's not in a punishment way, it's just an energetic, that's, you draw a like versus like, or like with like. And if you start to look at that instead of happening to you, it's actually the message that you're holding on to, this belief that's not serving you, that's not in alignment to your divine self. So as you keep receiving these situations that you don't like, that's the window in. What belief am I holding that's drawing these experiences in that I don't want? And what do I want to feel? And what belief would I need to hold for that feeling to come in? So that gives you an idea kind of what's happening on a sort of energetic level, but as we show up in these modes. So let's come back to the original question of, is it easier? Is it easier to stay in autopilot? To not do the deep dive? My job is definitely not to convince you to do the deep dive. In order for this work to work, you have to want it. You have to be ready for it. You cannot force somebody into it. It's like forcing an addict into rehab. It doesn't work. Also, be careful if you are an awakened person, and I don't say that with a level of prestige or hierarchy. Just a way to describe it. But if you are sort of in this process of journeying inward, be aware of when you want to start convincing others to do it too. Because when you truly get to that space of being awakened, there's no need to convince others. You can allow them to be on the journey that they're on and wherever they're at, and not feel threatened by it. That somehow they might bring you back to where you came from. Just be aware of where you hold judgment. Things that irk you, that you want to judge, are a window in to something that you're still holding on to. So is it easier? Maybe in some ways. Maybe that's not the answer you wanted. But if you feel that calling, if you feel that curiosity, if you feel tired of existing the way that you have been, if you feel like there's something more to this lifetime, if you feel like there must be a better way, if you feel like you've been trying and trying and trying and doing all the things that you were supposed to, that you were taught was the way to exist, and still not feeling fulfilled, I would say that there's a part of you that's ready, that's opening to it, that's questioning. And what I do know is that once you have awakened even just a little bit, opened up just a little bit, it's really hard to go back into autopilot. Once you begin to taste the sweetness of what it's like to live in alignment with your spirit, the magic, it can be pretty tough to go back to autopilot. But more than anything, you know, if you are feeling this curiosity about this journey, but there's a part of you that's feeling afraid, just lean into it with a bit of compassion and a bit of curiosity. Go, that feels kind of scary. I wonder what that's about. And simply put, for a lot of you, it's that fear of trying a different way. That part of you that clicks into autopilot, into your different modes, was formed as a way of survival. And that part of you is not going to want you to find a different way because it feels like you're going against survival instincts. It's going to say, that's not safe. Let's not find another way. Let's just keep going the way that we always have. This is how we survive. And you can feel it sort of kick in, depending on your mode, right? Like if your way of trekking forward is to just numb out, don't feel, push it down, or if your way of survival is just work, just focus on work, or whatever, you know, as you start to bring awareness to the modes that you go into, again, not with any judgment, just noticing. You can ask yourself, what is it that I'm actually afraid of? And you can close your eyes and feel into your body. What is it that I'm actually afraid of? Afraid of the unknown, of the uncertain, of going somewhere and not being able to come back. Afraid of losing my sense of self. Afraid of becoming somebody that I don't recognize or maybe that others don't accept. Or is there a little belief in there that always kind of said to you, that work is useful. Feelings aren't useful. You just shove that down. But just taking those deep breaths and asking yourself, what is it that I'm afraid of? And also, if right now just doesn't feel like the time, you think, I'm curious about something there. I'm just not quite ready for it. That's okay too. Meet yourself where you're at. You can't force yourself into this. So to answer the original question, isn't it easier just to stay in autopilot? This work is hard. It's hard to live an awakened life. From my own personal experience, there's nothing sweeter than living an awakened life. And living in that slow, painful existence was much harder than the work of awareness and awakening. And actually, the work can be really fun. It's just whatever lens you choose to put on it. It can be fun, it can be playful, it should be. There's nothing serious here. It's as serious as you make it. There's nothing scary going on. So just witness that in yourself. Be gentle to yourself as you start to feel this kind of curiosity about the work or an urge to move into something and start learning and start shifting. Just take a deep breath into that space that feels scared. I hope that's helpful for you guys. Thanks so much for joining in. Please, anytime, reach out, NicoleBridger.com. My Instagram is Nicole Bridger. And let me know any questions you have. And have a blessed, blessed day.